Once we have our residuals, we can look at a residual plot, and the purpose of a residual plot is to assess form. That is its goal. Okay. So it helps us explain the residuals against the explanatory variable. So it's kind of like a second scatter plot where our x-axis is still our explanatory variable, but our y-axis is now the residuals. Okay, and it's, again, to assess form. Okay, so looking at this, our regression, or our residual plot is scattered. That is our goal. Okay, if it has a pattern, so I'm talking about this graph over here on B, if it has a pattern, then linear is not the best way to tell, and it's not appropriate. Okay, random scatter is good, pattern is not good. Okay. So when there's no obvious pattern, that's when linear model is correct. Residuals should be pretty small, but it depends on the data that you're working with. Okay. So this one kind of has like a parabolic shape. This one also kind of has a parabolic shape. These are the residuals. So actual minus predicted for each data explanatory variable. Since there is a pattern, and that pattern is very parabolic, the linear model would not be appropriate. If we look at a pattern that is appropriate, this is good. So up here is kind of screenshotted from the book. These are like the F-150 data, if you remember that from a while ago. Because there is only a random scatter, that is what we want. Okay, so this is a linear appropriate model, or it's appropriate for a linear model on this one. Okay, so on your McDonald's data of the beef sandwiches, it wants you to find the residual plot of it, and we're going to kind of look at it by hand. We're not going to do it by hand, and then I'll show you how to do it in your calculator. And your calculator is also on page 150 or 175 through 176. You can find it on there. Okay, so we would first have to find the predicted value. So from our equation that our calculator told us, we're going to put in the amount of carbs. So we have 31 carbs in this sandwich, so we're putting in 31 right here. Okay. From there, we would find that the predicted amount is about 13.06 grams of fat. We would take that predicted amount and subtract the actual observed amount, subtract that from there. Okay, so we would find the residual for each of the 9 sandwiches, kind of going through that process. So find the predicted amount, find the residual amount. Okay, or you can do it in your calculator, which I would suggest. There's less room for error. So from our plots, we're still going to go to our stat and edit. So we should still have our x values in L1, our y values in L2. Now we're going to arrow over to L3 and arrow up to where L3 is highlighted. While L3 is highlighted, we're kind of typing in what L3 is going to equal. We're going to go second stat, so we're in list, and go down to number 7 where it says residual. Beautiful. But found the residual of each data point. Okay, so that's helpful. You could copy that onto your table and then graph it by hand, or go back to your y equals. We're going to turn off plot 1 and turn on plot 2. But you need to tell it what plot 2 is. So you can go to second y equals, but you can go there directly and turn this off. and turn this one on. But you need to tell it what list to put in. Okay, so right now it's on. We've got our dot plot. Our x values are still in list 1. They're the same x values as before. But this time our y list, we need to put our residuals in there. So second, number 3 gives us list 3. And then we can go zoom. Yeah, zoom 9 for zoom stat. Okay, so our residual line's up there. You can turn that off if that's going to bother you. But this is our 0 line. So in a perfect linear thing, they would all have no residual, or a very small residual, to where they are all bouncing around this 0. We have some that are below, some that are above. Since it almost alternates positive to negative, then it is a linear model would be appropriate for this. Okay, so go ahead and copy this little picture onto your notes and copy the instructions on how to get there. Again, it is on page 175 through 176. At this point, you should be able to do the homework on page 161. Those are a little bit of a review. And then homework on page 193. You've got 6 problems there about residuals.